Welcome to Statesman.com and another edition of High School Blitz. I'm Danny Davis. This is Rick Cantu. Rick, it's Monday. It's time to talk about what we just learned this past week, give out a game ball or two. So what's one thing you learned and observed in the second round of the playoffs?
What I learned in the second round of the playoffs is you can't make every playoff game all the time when you have other things to do.
Yep.
I had the UIL State Volleyball Championships in Garland this week, and I had the pleasure of seeing Dripping Springs win state. And that was a big deal for them because they'd been to state now 3 years in a row, and they had made it to the finals last year, but this is the first year they won. And with 6 players going Division I, led by Morgan Greer, the MVP, going to Florida, and Autumn Rounsaville going to Texas.
Stay in here.
It was one of the best team efforts I had seen all year in any sport.
An incredible job by Coach Kane out there. First title
Absolutely.
for the Tigers since '94. I actually went to a couple football games. Since you were up covering volleyball, I got football. And one thing that stood out for me was sometimes stars don't mean everything. We talk a lot about recruiting. We hear a lot about the big names. And Lake Travis played Spring Westfield on Saturday in Brenham, and one of the people on Spring Westfield's team was Ed Oliver. He's a 5-star recruit going to Houston. He's number 5 on our Fab 55 list that we put out every year, and he was matched up against offensive guard Griffin Lemley. And you know what happened? Lake Travis quarterback Charlie Brewer wasn't sacked once. Griffin had a lot of one-on-one matchups with Ed Oliver, held him in check. Lake Travis was able to run the ball a little bit. Like I said, Charlie wasn't sacked, and Lake Travis went on to win 28-21. So Griffin, he hasn't been offered by anyone yet. He's gotten a little bit of interest from some FCS schools, some Division III schools. I think he should just put together this game film, send him out to some colleges, and see what happens.
Well, maybe after you spoke up for him, he'll get an offer.
All right, obviously Griffin and the Dripping Springs volleyball players stood out, but who is your game ball going to go to?
It's not a big surprise. I'm going with Travis Brandon. I know over the past couple of years we've given it to him multiple times, but when a football player scores 7 touchdowns, 5 rushing, 2 receiving, 200 and something yards rushing, more than 100 yards receiving, he's kind of been a do-it-all for the last couple of years. That's one reason he's been the Offensive Player of the Year for the entire state last year. Travis Brandon gets my game ball.
I'm going to give my game ball. I guess I got to give out 11 because I'm giving it to the Wimberley defense. 12 sacks last week and a 21-7 win over Orange Grove, an Orange Grove team that had been undefeated. Wimberley, on their other hand, started 0-6. We knew their defense was going to be strong. We just had to wait for their offense to catch up. It seems like both have done that, and the defense has played great over their past 6 games. So give it out to those Texan defenders. And up next, I got Sinton, another undefeated team. So we'll see what happens. Maybe we're talking about them next week, too.
Hopefully.
All right, so those are our game balls. That's what we learned this past week. Check back with us later in the week, and we'll be talking about the third round of the playoffs.